Yep, Gab got it wrong. I'm wearing the t-shirt with thanks to red all over. I said 17th for Barnsley before the season. They're currently fifth in League One, so not the best prediction. Yeah, listen, fair play to the gents at red all over for printing the t-shirt. So we'll get cracking with that. I think. It's a really wide open playoff scramble in League One this season, isn't it? I I think there's quite a narrow gap between the teams. I go down to, I think the top four: Birmingham, Wickham, possibly Wrexham, and certainly Huddersfield are a bit of a class above the rest of the league. But between Barnsley in fifth and possibly even Rotherham in 13th, I think there's a narrow gap in quality, which means that any team can really put a run together and come into that equation. So a really exciting last 20 odd games of the season to go. Who's going to make the top six? That's what we're going to be discussing on this League One podcast. Yes, welcome along to this League One podcast here on EFL Debate. You can get subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. That would help us out a lot. For now, I'm delighted to be joined by my co-hosts for the evening, Jake Tong from That Football League podcast, TLOP, or TFlop as it is now, and Colin Yates from the Fan Zone podcast of Bolton Wanderers. Good evening to you, gents. Coming to you, Jake, first of all. It looks to me like the playoff scramble in League One is wide open, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it, Gab? I completely subscribe to the idea that you had in the fact that the top four, I think, are miles better than the rest. I actually went back to the video that we put out at the start of the season where myself, you, Cole, Ed, Walker, and Farley all sort of compared our 1 to 24s. And I watched that just as a bit of context for tonight, just to have a look at what we'd said. And I had Huddersfield and Blues going up automatically. So I feel pretty confident about that one. But I agree with you in terms of the gap in quality from the top four. You could maybe even go down further than Rotherham. I think Stevenage, for what I've seen, are a decent outfit. So I think you could maybe include them. But yes, a lot of people have said this League One is a lot better and it's the best version of League One we've probably ever seen. I think it's just more competitive. I think the gap in quality is just smaller. We had a couple of years ago, Gab, I think you had the top 12 and the bottom 12. And this year, I think we're completely at the other contrast to the end of the table to that. So, it's really exciting, really good to cover it as not as a neutral because my team are part of it, but just watching it all unfold week upon week. It's been really interesting because at the minute you've got Stockport, Reading, and Orient holding the form and the cards, whereas in 3 months' time, it could be Bolton, Rotherham, and Lincoln. Do you know what I mean? It really could be. It really could be anything. So it's really interesting, I think.
Carl, I'm sure we'll come to the vacancy at Bolton Wanderers in Everton next in a moment. But I wanted to ask you from a broader point of view, is part of the frustration at Bolton Wanderers that this hasn't been as strong a League One as maybe we anticipated going into the campaign, and yet Bolton haven't been able to take advantage of that and aren't in the top six?
Yeah, absolutely. Failing to capitalise on our strong season last season, and obviously being so close to promotion, is grinding on a lot of Bolton fans, as you can imagine. Not only obviously with what you're saying in terms of it being a little bit weaker, and we've strengthened and we've spent money, and on paper our squad is better than it was last season, and we are, of course, miles away from that. At present, I'm obviously happy that we've made the change that we've made, but I'm sure we'll get into that later.
Yeah, we certainly will. Well, we'll bring in our first guest of the evening, Dan Finch of Charlton Athletic. Good evening, Dan. First of all, just on that general point, what have you made of the quality of League One? Is there a similar frustration among Charlton fans that you've not been able to kind of take advantage of how open it's been yet in terms of that playoff scramble? Sorry, you're on mute, mate.
That's typical, isn't it? I wouldn't say Charlton fans have had the expectation going into the season that we'd be up there anyway. So I think that it's been a bit hit and miss in terms of how fans have reacted to it. We've seen, I'd say, all the teams at the top have played against us and looked the best sides. So the Birminghams, your Wrexhams, even though we beat Birmingham, they put in a really good performance against us. I thought Reading was superb against us. Wycombe were the only team that kind of came against us I didn't think were great, but I think that might have just been an off day for them. So I think overall, we're not at that quality, and I don't think we will be. So not overly bothered right now.
In terms of recent form, it has picked up over the festive period and then kind of leading into the new year. How big a factor do you think Miles Leaburn getting back fit has been behind that?
I think it's been a mixture of Miles being available, just being a presence because we were solely relying on Matty Godden. But I think also we've almost completely changed our style forcefully, obviously because of the weather pre-Christmas. I think we went up to Lincoln and the weather conditions were awful and we couldn't play it in the air, so we had to learn to play a whole new style. And that's actually, ironically, since that Lincoln game, it's turned around for us. We're getting the ball down. The midfield have started to look like they can progress, which was your last time I was on. I spoke to you about how our midfield was just non-existent. They're starting to exist again, and that's been very helpful. And hopefully we can. I heard the rumor this morning that we might be adding a midfielder before the window shuts. We need to add something. So might carry
that
on
was
now.
that was an observation that Dan. Sorry to interrupt, Gab, but obviously we obviously played you guys on Tuesday night, and I did feel that your midfield was pretty kind of non-existent, really, and I didn't. Obviously, I mean, you're coming up against, like Josh Sheehan, Aaron Morley, and whatnot, who are good footballers, but you didn't really have any presence in there, and I do feel that the kind of game bypassed your midfield. I mean, you won the game, let's be fair, credit where it's due, but I think under different circumstances, I'm sure you probably would agree, you probably wouldn't have won that game, and I think the lack of midfields, if you will, is probably a contributing factor to that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think if we played that game another 10 times, I don't think we win again. So, I'm not surprised. I think our midfield, and I've said it before on here, we have 3 players in the midfield that are quite similar, very industrious. They'll get around and make all the tackles. Coventry, Doherty, then when they come off, bring on like Karoy Anderson. We did have Terry Taylor, who's obviously now at Northampton. They're all very similar. We don't have that player that's different. We have Luke Berry, but Luke Berry never really, age or whatever reason, we don't get 90 minutes out of him. Very rarely do we get 60 out of him before he looks knackered and has to come off. I don't think we play a style that particularly plays to his advantage. It is quite direct. It is quite physical. Not particularly Luke Berry's game.
I mean, Dan, I would look at your squad and think you've got the strikers there to become a consistent goal-scoring side, which you've started to be, in fairness, a little bit more in the last couple of months. But I'm wondering, and you've touched on this, somebody who can offer something different. Are you missing that kind of flair number 10, that kind of maverick, for want of better word, someone who can kind of just bring a touch of magic to that sort of advanced midfield area?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're missing. I think when you look back at our promotion season when we won the playoff final against Sunderland, obviously we had Johnny Williams and Joe Aribo, so it didn't really matter who we had played in that 10. We had that ability, and obviously they're both very good players, so not necessarily to that level, but just someone that connects to the front line. Because, for example, I think if we were to play our strongest 11, for me it would be Matty Godden up front with Miles Leaburn. If you can get that, that's a good combo. Big man, small man. Matty Godden's a bit more of a poacher. Leaburn has that all-round game. I think Thierry Small has really come into his own in recent weeks. He's actually been playing at right wing back, which is, on the wrong side for him normally, but he's been playing fantastic while we wait for Kane Ramsey to be fit. I think that number 10, that someone just to get on the ball and make that final pass, that bit of magic, as you said, that's exactly what we're missing. And then who knows?
Does Thierry Small go back to the left to displace Josh Edwards when Kane Ramsey returns, or does Thierry Small stay on the right and Edwards stays on the left?
I think Kane Ramsey walks back into the team. Right. I think the left side becomes a debate. Kane Ramsey was so good for us beginning of this season. I think as soon as he's fit, I think they'd be mad not to put him back. And then the left side, that's a battle to be had. He favoured Josh Edwards earlier on in the season. There's been that conversation in the fan base about could Josh Edwards maybe play as that left-sided centre half rather than Macaulay Gillespie.
But Dan, I saw Can I just come in on that, Dan? Because I saw his highlights when they first signed, and he was kind of very much billed as a kind of end-to-end wing-back, somebody that liked to get into the box and get on the end of things. Whereas you kind of limit that ability if you're playing him as an outside centre half, don't you?
Yeah, but we haven't seen that side to Josh Edwards
Right.
at Charlton.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know if it's, again, back to creativity and getting the ball in the right areas. We're a very direct side, and if we're playing direct football from the centre half up to the striker, there's not necessarily that time for the wing backs to get forward and be that advanced without a number 10 to kind of pass and make those movements. That would be my explanation. I assume and I hope it changes. Thierry Small has done a good job of kind of getting up and down the wings, but it is kind of when he's got the ball rather than someone giving him that space himself.
Jake, have you been able to set your eyes on Charlton this season? If so, what have you made of them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Dan's already alluded to the game at Central Bank where the weather just completely killed it. Like, genuinely, I thought it was going to be a really good game of football, but the weather completely killed it. And we both sort of played long ball in the wind together. It was an extremely bizarre 90 minutes. But what I have seen and what I know of Nathan Jones football is it's never pretty. Even when they win, it's never pretty. So therefore, when they don't win and when they haven't won and they did have a real streak where they've not started to win, the fans get on the back of the manager because it looks like the football's going absolutely nowhere. But when you do win, and like they are winning now, like they won the other night, all of a sudden it's the next best thing, and that's football fans are absolutely fickle. I have enjoyed parts of Charlton. I seem to think they're a real streaky team, and potentially a team that are far too streaky maybe to put in a consistent run to get into the top six. I have a feel they can go and win 5 games in a row, but I also have every confidence this team can go and lose 5 games in a row as well. Yeah. And that's your issue when you're trying to get into the playoffs. When you look at teams that get in there, it's always the teams that are continually just picking up points, wins, draws. This Charlton team don't particularly seem to do that for me. I'm not a massive supporter of the way that Nathan Jones play. I quite like how he's taught them the dark arts. I quite like the Lloyd Jones to Ian Evatt on Tuesday night. I quite enjoy. Well, Dan will tell you about how good Alex Mitchell is at that sort of thing as well. So I enjoy that. But in terms of the actual football when it's on the floor, well, it's not on the floor. That's the problem for Charlton. They need, like you say, that creative number 10 that they can play through. Then you maybe unlock the likes of Greg Doherty from distance, or you maybe unlock Luke Berry in his third man run. So, yeah, I'm sort of really indifferent on Charlton this season. They've been, like I say, really streaky. And probably, I mean, Dan sort of says he feels they're potentially not in this conversation, but due to league position, they probably are. I feel like they've got a bad run coming around the corner, and that could well start on Saturdays. And then all of a sudden, we're talking about Charlton being banging mid-table where they sort of finished for the last 2 years or so, not to be negative.
How
True.
Sorry to interrupt, gents. Just very quickly, Gab. How much of a miss do you feel that Miles Leaburn has been to Charlton's? I know you talk about number 10s and you're talking about creative, from the wide areas and whatever else. But for me, Miles Leaburn is such a figurehead of your attack and would be for a lot of teams at this level. Have you missed him? Is what I'm trying to get at, Dan.
We certainly did. I think we were lucky at the beginning of the season that we had an EK fit, which kind of held that physical side of the game for a while. And then once an EK got hurt again, we did fall apart because
he isn't in the same class as Leaburn, though, is he?
No, but in terms of, I think for physicality wise and what an EK can do when he's on the ball, he can be very dangerous. Miles Leaburn is, I'd say, a better player. But an EK's physicality and the way he plays is a problem because he creates a lot of room for other people. So that kind of covered it a little bit. And then when we lost both of them, you saw it. And then as soon as Leaburn came back, suddenly the gaps were opening again. I'm not surprised. He was out a long time. We had a bad run of form. Leaburn came back in and it sprung again. I'm begging that at some point he lets Leaburn and Godden start together, as I said earlier on, because I think that could be very profitable strike force. Leaburn is very important to what we do because he can move around. He wins the battles. There's a lot of rumours that he might be off in the summer. So hopefully he can do the job beforehand, but I'm not sure.
Do you think, Dan, that your depth could be a factor in what you're able to do in the second half of the season? Because if I look at the game at Bolton, it seems to me, I've not watched the entire game, but it seems like Bolton Wanderers were very much the better side for the first 60, 70 minutes. But then as soon as Charlton equalised, Bolton heads went down. But you bring on the likes of Caroy Anderson, Matty Godden, Chukwuemeka, might be one other in there. Those four subs, it seemed like kind of coincided with that improved 20 minutes, and Nathan Jones wasn't afraid to put them on at similar times. So do you think that depth and that ability to change games from the bench is something we're going to see more of?
I think in the front line, yes. As I said, in the midfield of like Caroy Anderson, I think he's very similar to what we have. So I don't think it changes a lot. I think having the ability to rotate that front four, any team would love to have that, and we're very lucky that we can do that and it be successful. Obviously, we started with Tyrese Campbell and Miles and brought on Chucks and Matty Godden, pretty much like for like kind of replacement. So yeah, I mean, it's helpful for any team to have that. That you feel if you want to go direct, we can bring on Chucks and go with Chucks and Miles, or if you feel that you're going to having that option to completely change how you're going to line up your strike force is obviously helpful. In the midfield, as I said, it's not the same because we are bringing on Caroy Anderson, who is like another version of Greg Docherty or whatever. So if we could bring in that, as we've been saying, we bring in that number 10, someone with a bit more spark, then that frees up your midfield to be a little bit more. And then off the bench, you can add something different, whether that's you bring off the 10 and bring on Anderson or Coventry for a more defensive shape when you're doing well.
Do you know, I'm surprised Daniel Kanu hasn't featured more this season, because I thought he had a sort of a pretty good under the radar 23-24 campaign. Nothing spectacular, but you feel like he was bubbling away nicely last season. And this season he seems to have flopped right down the pecking order to third or fourth. And I miss Daniel Carney, the player, and I miss the Saturday Night and I Like the Way You Move songs as well.
Yeah, so he got injured in, I think, October time.
Right,
and missed. He was more or less parallel with Anike. We lost them both pretty similar, and he hasn't really been able to get back since. I think he got injured on international duty and then hasn't featured since. He's been off he's been in the last couple of squads, but never made any appearance. I think when you look at our four options, Tyrese Campbell seems to be Nathan Jones' pick. He likes the energy, and then obviously, as I said, we've got Lee Byrne and Anike who offer that physicality, and Matty Godden's that poacher. So then Daniel Kanu is kind of the odd one out.
Yeah, I tell you what, though,
I think to go that on loan.
Yeah, if I tell you what, for clubs in League Two, Daniel Kanu on loan, I would absolutely I'd be all over that. So just finally then, Dan, before we bring in a Matt from the New York Talk podcast on Rotherham United, do you think Charlton can make a push for the top 7 and put together a bit of a run in the last 20 games of the season, or do you share more close to Jake's point of view that maybe a bad run could be around the corner? The doomsayer, as it were.
I think we're right on the cusp, I guess. Like our next 5 games, we've got Shrewsbury at home, Bristol Rovers at home, Stevenage at home, and Peterborough at home in the next 5 games. So four big home games. If we can get 12 points from that, then absolutely you're in the race. So I think they're going to be huge games to see. I have a feeling we'll probably finish in that 10th to 13th range. I think we're improved on what we were last year. I don't think we have what it takes to. The number 10, I think, could be crucial. If we can add a 10 that's effective, I think we'll be in the conversation.
If you bring in a game changer number 10, then I think there is that opportunity that you could make the most of the sort of low bar for the playoffs that I'd call it this year. So, best luck to. Sorry, go on.
So I was going to say, it's a shame that we're messing about in the position that we're in, because Carlos Mendes Gomez has just come back from injury and he would be perfect. We could lend you in, while we're messing about trying to get into the top 2, but that's a pipe dream. So sorry about that. He would be a good number 10 to have, though, wouldn't he?
Top 2, Carl. What sort of an evening have you been having?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That it's a shame that we're messing about not in that conversation, because someone like that would be perfect for Charlton as a 10.
The rumor that has been picked up recently is Harry Cornick from Bristol City. I mean, maybe just because he played once.
I don't think he'd bring the kind of flair that you're looking for, Dan. I think he's very much a workman-like forward. I don't think he's going to bring that.
But I can see that it's a very Nathan Jones-esque signing, isn't it?
Yeah,
so it wouldn't be surprised me if he is someone that comes through the door. A bit of you can play in a couple of positions as well. So
Certainly. Dan, thanks so much for your time and look forward to catching up with you later in the season.
okay, see you later.
See you, Dan.
Cheers, Dan.
Delighted to be joined now by Matt Lax from the New York Talk podcast on Rotherham United. Matt, great to have you on. One thing that really stands out to me about Rotherham from the last, since going back to probably the sort of mid-December, is you seem to be a lot more intentional, a lot more precise in the final third, and you seem to be better at creating those kind of clear chances as opposed to those half chances where you're relying on things bouncing off a defender or those kind of unpredictable sort of variables. It feels like you're more intentional in the final third and more precise.
Yeah, we absolutely are. Absolutely are. It kind of changed on the when we played Lincoln on New Year's Day. We changed this formation.
How did you win that, Matt? How on earth did you win that? That was awful. My God.
With the help of you guys.
Yeah, exactly. You're welcome.
But we changed formation that game. We brought Cam Humphreys as kind of a sitting midfielder in there, which we were really missing. It's just allowed everybody else to kind of go away and have a bit more freedom. We put Joe Powell in a much more advanced position now. Whereas before he was kind of a standard midfielder. He's now just off the left-hand side of almost a 3 behind a 2. And it just allows him to do whatever he wants to do. He can just roam all over the pitch. And for me, Joe Powell's been one of the reasons we are better now, because he just has this freedom to go and do whatever he wants to do. And he's such a good player, and he's got that vision. And we've just, as you often see with these kind of players, you just take the lead off him a little bit, and it allows other players to express themselves as well. So hats off to Steve Evans, because this change of formation that nobody saw coming has just worked wonders so far.
Certainly has. One thing I've seen with the Steve Evans side previously is he's played. When he was Gillingham manager, they had a very good defensive record because they had a lad called Alfie Jones playing at the base of midfield. He was a centre-back by trade. He's now a centre-back for Hull City. But actually at Gillingham, he did a great job sort of at the base of a diamond. And I'm sort of seeing a bit of a parallel at Rotherham with Cameron Humphreys, who's obviously been a very highly rated centre-back at Rotherham. I know your fans have thought a lot of him. I think his career sort of progression might have been more linear without 1 or 2 injuries. So this is a really good defender. But actually, Steve Evans has seen a place for him at the base of midfield, and that looks like a masterstroke, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. He did this first time around when he was manager in 2012. We brought in Carrie Arneson, who was realistically centre half, played him in midfield, and it just helps. It's just an extra bit of defensive solidity at the back. Cam Humphreys is a technical defender, which doesn't really normally fit in with the Steve Evans side. So I understood why he didn't kind of work in centre half. But he's come up to the Man City academy. You can see it. He has got that vision. He's got that ability. Sometimes he wants the extra touch on the ball, which is what causes problems at centre back. But it gives him an extra layer of protection. Against Bolton, I think it was just so good. Some of the balls he was playing, you just shouldn't be doing that for a centre half. He was so good. He completely ran the show. So he's got this. He can move the ball forward. He's not just a sitter. He's just so good on the ball, and he's got that vision. It's surprised he's not played there for longer for other clubs, not just us. It just seems a natural fit in that position as well. And like I say, it then gives Joe Powell and Sean Williams a bit more freedom, because they ain't really going to worry too much, because Cam Humphreys has got the vision and the pace. He's so quick across the field. So if we do lose possession, he's really good at getting across and breaking it with the opposition as well. If he gets injured, then we ain't got anybody to kind of cover that. So that is an issue, that he is the only player we've got to kind of do that job. But kind of enjoying while he's doing it, because it's just transformed the team, to be honest with you. Playing him there has just transformed the team completely.
Given the transformation that Cameron Humphreys has had, and obviously him being out of contract in June, are you a little bit concerned about him going on to pastures new?
Yeah, this is the Rotherham United way. We get players who are quite good and let them run out of contract. Hakeem Adoffin's also out of contract in the summer, and he's shown no signs that he's interested in signing, which is fair enough. They both can probably get contracts in the Championship next year. They're not going to get loads of money, but they can probably make that step up. Well, they showed last year they can make that step up. This football club's renowned for terrible contract dealings. It's just what we do. Chio Benny left on a free transfer. Dan Barlaser, so we've gone down to his last 4 months for his contract and got half his worth.
Sorry, Matt, do you put that down to maybe swapping and changing managers, you might say, a little bit too often?
No, I think it's the background work. Originally, I
Right.
thought it was Paul Warne because all these things happened with Paul Warne. You kind of sit thinking, well, because Michael Smith, another one, Michael Smith and Michael, who are left at freeze as well. You kind of think it was Warney a bit too soft on the players a little bit, and then it same happened with Matt Taylor, same happened with Steve Evans as well. I think behind the scenes, I don't think we're a very well financially we're all right, but everything else about the football club just seems backwards and slow and 10 years behind the pace. So if we had our head about us, we could. How much money could we have sold Chio Ogbeni for? How much money should have sold Dan Barlaser for? We should be sitting on a bit of a fortune here. So there's questions we've talked about on the podcast. There's so many questions about how the way the football club's run. And if you're not learning your lesson, I mean, what are you doing? This happened literally 2 or 3 years ago. They're not learning the lessons. It's just mind blowing, really, and it's going to cost the football club, money, a lot of money. It has.
Yeah.
Certainly is. It's interesting on that topic because I once spoke to Josh Yardley, another Rotherham fan, and I asked him whether he thinks Rotherham United can meet their mid to long term ambitions under Tony Stewart's ownership, and I was expecting it to, sort of maybe a more mixed or kind of answer, but it was quite an emphatic no, because of how badly, just sort of what you're saying, really, that operationally the club just makes bad decisions, and I think Tony Stewart just seems to be too stubborn to do anything about it at this stage. And hopefully, he might stick around. I think there's some sort of anniversary coming up that he's might be staying on for, and then hopefully he sells up to someone better or someone who can take the club to the next sort of level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those years in the Championship kind of tell you everything you need to know. If you're going to keep going up with the Championship, if you keep getting relegated, something's going wrong. You're doing something wrong as a football club. If it happens once, you can accept it. And the second time we got relegated, I was on the last kick of the season. But when you get relegated as badly as just somebody's doing something wrong, and Tony Stewart appears to be, I wouldn't say a control freak, but he wants to do things his own way. And that's why we've ended up with Steve Evans, because Tony Stewart decided that's what he wanted to do. Even though nobody else at the football club wanted it, Tony Stewart wanted it, so that's kind of what happened. And that model of football clubs doesn't really work at this level. Everything's so technical and specific. You've got to get the margin of error so tight. You can't just say Tony Stewart wants to do this and then it'll be all right. It worked first round with Steve Evans. It worked perfectly. Football's changed so much over that time, and this football club is a club being run like it's 2012, and that's. When you got someone like Paul Warne who ran the club, like almost ran the club himself, then you can get limited success. But there's no way in a million years that if Tony Stewart could relinquish a bit of control and let's say give Rob Scott, who is our director of football recruitment or something, if he gave him, you're a director of football, you run the football club, he's got a good reputation, Rob Scott, he's very well thought of apparently in the football industry. Just let him do the job, and if it doesn't work, then sack him and bring somebody else in. But we need to relinquish control from Tony Stewart, if not ownership-wise, just in running the football club.
Football decisions need to be made by football people, really, don't they? So talk to me about Malik Wilkes, Matt, and Andre Green, because at the expense of the likes of Sam Nombe and Johnson Clark-Harrison, their places in the first 11, those two seem to be striking up a real partnership in recent weeks.
Yeah, Malik Wilkes is an odd one, isn't he, Malik Wilkes? In December, he was really poor. It was so poor. He flashes hot and cold, doesn't he? He's that kind of wide player. He was so poor in December, and then there were rumours that we were going to send him back to Sheffield Wednesday. And then when those rumours came through, he decided to turn up again. Like against Lincoln, he could have had 2 or 3 against Lincoln. He was just on it.
Please don't make me go back there.
Exactly. We started playing him as a striker, and I wasn't convinced he could do it. But he's just taken to it like a duck to water. He's got that physicality where he can just hold defenders up. He's also got that lightning pace where he can just go beyond a man, whether it's run onto a pass like he did for the fourth goal against Charlton or whatever else case. I'm surprised how good he's taken to being an out-and-out striker. Sam Nombe were up until the Charlton game were playing together. Nombe's in this new system. Nombe's full of energy, so he's been fantastic. Sam Nombe, him and Wilkes. He's then picked up a slight strain, which I don't think is long-term, but Andre Green came in Saturday, and we were kind of thinking, well, has Andre Green got that work rate to kind of do what Sam Nombe is doing? Yeah, turns out he has. He just slotted in there, scored within 10 minutes. I think he got 2 assists as well, 1 goal, 2 assists. Andre Green has the potential to be a bit of a cheat code at this level. He's again, technically such a good player. He's got that vision. He's got everything he needs. Obviously, he had that long-term injury with the Achilles, which has been a problem. But if you can get him in the team consistently, which Evans hasn't done yet until kind of last week, then you've got a player there who can, again, just take it to a bit of another level. He's more mobile than someone like Jonathan Clark-Harris and Jordan Hugill. So he just gives you something else as a team. It just helps you in the same way that Nombe and Wilkes seem to be doing. I don't know if it'll continue, but at the minute, it just seems to be clicking really, really well, and hopefully long may it continue.
Maybe Wilkes decided to turn up because his contract's up in the summer at Sheffield Wednesday, and maybe he's after a contract at Rotherham. Who knows?
I don't think we can afford him. To be honest, when it Wednesday, probably playing players, we can't afford him. But Wilkes is one of those players I think needs to be managed properly by the right manager. And Evans just seems to have got him doing the right things, and which he can do. And if you can get the right kind of style and effort out of Malik Wilkes, certainly at this level, he is a great player.
Bit more optimistic about your playoff prospects than perhaps you were if I'd spoken to you a month or two ago, Matt.
Oh well, yeah, ridiculously. I think on just before Boxing Day, the game before Boxing Day, we were 4 points off relegation zone. Had Crawley not thrown away that big lead against Exeter, we would have been 2 points off the relegation zone. So we're just a million miles away from where we were. I think we're 7 points off with the game in hand. Our next 3 games, we've got Burton away, Cambridge at home, Birmingham away, and then Shrewsbury at home. So three out of those 4 games are real opportunities to pick up maximum points. And if you can come out of that little run with 9 points, or even more, potentially sneak some at Birmingham, you're in it. You're in the conversation. And that's all where we wanted to be a month ago. Let's just be in that conversation. And you know what Steve Evans' teams are like? Once they get on a run, they're very, very difficult to stop. Once he finds a method and a way of working things out, it could sneak us in there. And we felt like a million miles away, even a month ago. On the 31st of December, as long as we don't get dragged into a relegation fight, I'll be happy. Now it's changed so quickly. We are in that conversation. We're going to Burton tomorrow, kind of think on Saturday. So I'm thinking, we should probably be winning that. And then you've got Cambridge next week, or the league saying, we probably should win. That's probably saying we should pick up 6 points, and then you'll probably be within 3 to 5 points of the playoffs. Then you're in the conversation properly. And if we can do a bit of good business over the next week or so, why not? There's such good inconsistency in all those 5th and 6th place. It's there for somebody.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully, Matt, that Rotherham can be one of the ones to grab it. Matt, thanks so much for your time, and keep up the great work on the New York Talk podcast.
Cheers, fellas.
Cheers, Matt. Thanks, Matt.
Delighted to be joined now by Adam Parks of the Lowdown podcast on Leyton Orient. Good evening, Adam. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been, I think, since you last came on, it's been a bit of a whirlwind for Leyton Orient. You got Manchester City in the Cup in early February, but you've also been in great form in the league, helped by a fantastic defensive record.
I do feel like you've asked me on just as Orient have lost a game, though. So it's we haven't lost a game in 12, and the text message comes today from Gab. Can you come on and speak about the Orient losing to Stevenage? Thank you. No, listen,
the one you said you were going to be 8-0 last time you were on.
Look, I did say prior to Christmas that the whole Christmas schedule was the key to our season, and I think Richie alluded to it in an interview he did with our podcast just before Christmas, that the way that the schedule's fallen for the Orient is that now we're getting into that tough 25% again, where we've got to play all the teams in and around the top of the table. But near the end of the season, we're going to play the majority of the teams that are currently near the bottom of the table. So if we can pick up some results in the next few weeks, I don't see us getting away with win after win like we have been, then who knows what the end of the season is going to bring. But at the moment, we're 3 points away from the playoffs, and we're top of the form table for the last 8, second only to Huddersfield in the last 10 and 12. So, it's all going really well. The team have seemingly gelled. Jamie Donnelly has woken up from his slumber from being labelled the next Harry Kane by every Tottenham fan under the sun. And he's coming good, and so is Sonny Perkins. So we've got a couple of new guys who've come in. Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, you are right. And we can't wait to beat Man City in the 4th round of the FA Cup.
Absolutely. Talk to me about this impeccable defensive record that you've got, because that seems to have been a real sort of cornerstone of the form that you've been in.
I've been the biggest critic of Omar Beckles. I've been the critic of Omar Beckles on this very show. I've been a critic on our own show, but I've also always put my hands up and say I'm not saying I was wrong to make them comments at the time, but Omar Beckles, and this isn't a sentence that is probably going to come out of my mouth again potentially. Omar Beckles should be, if he continues the way that he's playing, the Leyton Orient Player of the Year. And he would be probably close to getting in the Team of the Year for the division. If you want to push me on it, I think he's been impeccable. The mistakes have stopped, and he's been a real leader, which is something I've been highly critical of him in the past. So Dan Happy is injured, and then we've got the next man up. So Jack Simpson. Then if he gets injured, we've got the next man up is Brandon Cooper. We've got a good, solid central defence. Jack Curry, obviously on loan from Oxford. He's been a massive part of that. And we've had Sean Clare and Tom James at right back, and just recently Ethan Galbraith playing at right back and getting more touches of the ball. So when you've got one of your most creative players getting the most touches of the ball in your team, then it doesn't matter where they're playing, they're going to be able to create. So yeah, it's been nice to see. We've blown a few teams away, but we've won the odd game 1-0. It's good, and you can't get anywhere without a decent defence. I think we're one of the best in the division at the moment. So I would like if you take out the first 4 or 5 games, of course, but I'd rather be us than Peterborough.
Parksy, can I ask you something? It feels quite reminiscent of this time last year, where Leyton Orient went on a really, really good run, got themselves right in the picture, and then let yourselves down right at the last hurdle. I remember you came to our place and we beat you. I think it was in the 90th minute where Omar Beckles gave the ball away, and we beat you. And it sort of put your playoff dreams to bed. Are you sort of slightly concerned that we might be seeing a repeat of last year?
I think there's been a few more instances of the rubber, the green going our way this year. I mean, we can always go back, unfortunately, to that incident last season where the poor fan died during the game, and then we had to replay it in different circumstances, and we know how that ended. There are little bits and pieces throughout last season that we didn't really recruit well in January. We didn't take a chance, and Richie's been very vocal about that. We've got Azim Abdullahi from Swansea. We paid money for him, so he's coming in to go into midfield. We've got Dylan McConday, who's been on fire at Chesterfield in League Two on loan from Blackburn. So we've got 2 players that come in. We've just got Lewis Warrington alone to Salford that's just been announced. So he's gone for the rest of the season. So we are freeing up space. I can see us probably getting 1 or 2 more players in. The issue is injuries because of the amount of football that we played, the cup runs, and going quite deep-ish in the Virtue Motor Trophy. It's about who we get in and how quickly we can get Dan Ajayi back. He should be due back in maybe a few weeks' time. Ollie O'Neill is going to be back probably the end of March, around that time. But yeah, I mean, it is injuries that are really hampering us. No Jordan Graham. We're doing this without Jordan Graham and Theo Archibald as well. So we won't see them this year. I do think 2 more faces will make a massive difference. I do think that last year we didn't do very well in the transfer market whatsoever. And we're on a run. And it started before Christmas. It started at more or less the beginning of December. I think if you go back to the 1st of December, we were 21st and we were 2 or 3 points off bottom. And I wasn't.
But you were always better. I always thought you were a level above the team.
And I agree with you, but I think I'd stuck by my 16th position from where we are in the league, that it looked like at the beginning of the season would be very, very, very tricky to get through, would be quite good. After seeing all the top teams play against us, I don't think there's much to fear. Look at the games we've been smashed by. I mean, we got beaten by Shrewsbury 3-0. There's 1 or 2 aberrations, but we've always been in games. And I think the fact that we've got confidence now, we've got players that are actually performing. They are performing as a team as well, which is really important. We're not wasting chances. We've got 2 strikers. All right, Ajay is injured, but we've got 2 guys up top with Kelman, who've now gone over 10 goals in the season, which I did say would probably be something that would happen this year at the way that it's gone. If they both get to 15, 16, 17 goals in the season, we've had a good year. We weren't getting goals from midfield. We're now getting goals from outside the front three. So Perkins has tapped in a few as well. So it's different. It's different, Jake. That's the long answer to to your question. But the short answer is I don't see. The only thing that's going to stop us fading away this year is make us fade away this year. Sorry, is if someone comes in for Richie. That's what it is.
I was going to get to that.
Welcome in, Cole.
And I say this, Cole, right? We did an interview with Richie, and me and the guy I was doing an interview with, Matt Simpson, who's a blogger. He wrote a book about the Orient as well, and we were on this video call. We couldn't see Richie; he was blanked out. So was George Short, the Orient media guy, and it just kept bringing up Ian Evatt and Bolton. Every time he had we're not Bolton. We haven't got this. We haven't got this. We haven't got that. Yeah, Bolton got this. Bolton shouldn't be in the top in League One. We've always had a joke at the Orient about the fact that he really wants the Bolton job. And now that they've got rid of Evatt, it's like, please don't.
Yeah, listen, he's a local lad, isn't he? He's from Manchester. Literally 10 miles down the road. The ground is a prominent place in the Northwest in terms of off the 61, and it's fresh in his mind, I guess, because of having family around here and everything else like that. It does make it quite clear that he is an advocate of us as a football club, but I'm not too sure whether or not that would be the route that we will go down, to be honest with you.
I don't think he will, but if it was last season, then I think he might have done. He's moved his family down now.
Yeah.
They're starting to settle. He's got his youngster, Alfie, was on the bench for the FA Cup game against Derby. He didn't get on, but obviously...
Really, you think, Adam, if Bolton Wanderers came with a brilliant offer, that they offered to triple his salary, give him one of the biggest budgets in the league for next season, you think Richie Wellens, who's an ambitious manager, still relatively young, would turn that down?
Why would he? I mean, you're saying that, but you're tripping his salary. He's nearly on £1 million in League One. I mean, that's not going to happen.
That's what Schumacher would allegedly be on if Schumacher could take the job.
I can't see. They had a chance. They probably could have got him when we were down the bottom of the league, and it wouldn't have been an expensive proposition. He's got a new contract. There's going to be buyout clauses, which obviously a club like Bolton can do. But you've got a manager that has got aspirations. I mean, I'm surprised that lower end championship clubs that have got rid of their managers haven't come sniffing around Richie Wellens. They must look at what the job he's done with no budget, barely any budget, compared to some teams in the division, and he's getting a song out of a team that.
I wonder if it's because it's a PR. I mean this in the nicest possible way, but it comes across as a little bit abrupt from a PR perspective, and I think sometimes that's one of Ian Evatt's biggest. In my opinion, one of his biggest flaws as a manager, he didn't really often think before he spoke, and he got tripped up. And when you're under immense pressure at a club like us, everything's under scrutiny, everything's picked apart to the nearest degree. So I'm wondering whether Richie Wellens comes across as an outspoken bloke who kind of wears his heart on his sleeve, and maybe that's put a few clubs off, possibly.
He doesn't suffer fools. I mean, just going back to what I was saying about it, he's got a great relationship with his chairman. He's working for employers that trust him, that go over and beyond what they should do as employers. And would he want to risk it? Would he want to? And that's another thing. He seems like an honourable guy. And after speaking to him, I got a softer side of him that I've ever seen before about what he does with his players. And he's never headbutted someone at the middle of the pitch either. So
that's a bonus.
He's not yours anymore. I can say what I want. But I would also say that a lot, and it's not just saying Bolton, but a lot of clubs, if you look from the outside at how some of the managers have been treated, either by the fans or by, I'm not saying this is your case, I'm just saying generally bigger clubs, by the fans or by their boards. Why would he want to jump ship now? It would seem, if you want your stock to be really, really high, imagine getting Leyton Orient to the playoffs in League One in a season where Huddersfield, Birmingham, Bolton,
Yeah.
Charlton, all these big clubs are in League One, and Leyton Orient get there. And imagine if he gets them into the Championship on the biggest.
Yeah, if he gets Leyton Orient into playoffs, it's like amazing job. If he gets us into the playoffs, it's like, yeah, all right, go on, crack on, get us promoted. Like that's expected. So I totally get what you're saying.
And I think the biggest thing for me as well is that he's got such a hold over the culture of Leyton Orient right now, the fans as well. He's a bit like Willy Wonka, you know. He literally has everyone singing his tune. If he wants the fans to come and buy scarves, we just go into the shop and buy scarves. We're like worker ants. We just go, yeah, we'll swing around the Red Richie. We do what you tell us to. He wants the players to play a certain way, they do it. He wants the ball to act in a certain way, they do it. You know, and so to actually be the figurehead of a football club and not just the head coach and, you know, this, that, and the other, I think it plays into his ego a bit as well. And you know, he is brash, he is abrupt, but my God, he's going to go on to bigger, better things than Leyton Orient, and that's not being disingenuous to my football team, my football family. But he will, I believe, if he carries on what he's doing, will end up either getting a good job in the Championship or getting a club from the Championship into the Premier League. I don't know if his nature would keep him long in the Premier League. He would get sent off every week. But it's ever since he's gone upstairs as well. I think he's learning about himself a lot. And I think that he would weigh up the pros and cons of going to any club in the same division, aside from maybe ones that were 100% destined for getting promoted, like potentially a Birmingham or a Huddersfield. I don't know, but
I'm gonna make you feel a little bit better about the situation, Parksy, because Big Sam today on his podcast, No Tippy Tappy Football, has come out and said that I do not want to be Bolton's manager. I'm happy to work for the club in some capacity, but I don't want to be the manager. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because currently, and I'm not too sure how much you should read into the odds, but Sam is 12-1 to take the job, and Richie Wellens is 14-1. So he's come out and said that he doesn't want a job, and he's shorter. So
I don't think we can say that Sam Allardyce is more likely to get the Bolton job than Richie Wellens. But
I'm not saying that. I'm saying if he's coming out and saying that he doesn't want it, and he's 12-1, and Richie Wellens is 14-1, and say, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to make.
No, I see where you're coming from. Well, certainly, I think it's a massive factor in whether or not Leyton Orient.
And let's be fair. Yeah, let's be fair. You've got managers that have been dismissed from Championship clubs like Rob Edwards. That he's got League One down, you know, League Two, League One down, the bottom two divisions, and he's got a team promoted from the Championship. Like if I'm Bolton, I'm looking at that and going, right, so Luton went way too far above expectations and got into the Premier League. They've got the money for it, but then they've lost all their players, and then their manager's not got a song out of them this year because they had to change the way they played when they got into the Premier League. So their identity changed. So if I'm Bolton or any team at the top of League One, I'm looking at what manager I can afford, and I'll go all in on Rob Edwards, just purely because his CV stacks up more. It's far superior because he's been in the Premier League and got promotions.
Absolutely.
So again, like I'm not worried because I don't think he would go. But if a big club does come in for him at some point, we're going to be the benefactors. We will benefit. Of getting a nice.
I do think there's a hunger for Richie Wellens to really go and prove himself at a higher level, because I can see that he's a very ambitious manager. But some great points there, Parksy, and certainly a big factor in terms of this season about whether or not Leyton Orient can reach the playoffs. So hopefully for you, he stays, and and best luck for the rest of the season, Parksy.
Cheers, boys. Nice to see you.
Top man, and keep up the great work on the Lowdown podcast. Delighted to be joined now by Josh Atherton from Red All Over. Got to show you the top.
Oh, wowee.
Gab got it wrong.
That is looking strong.
I know, yeah. Great shout out to everyone at Red All Over for printing the t-shirts. Really appreciate it. So, Josh, Barnsley up to 5th rather than 17th. Although it was a 3-1 loss at Bristol Rovers last time out, but had 26 shots on that game, so clearly wasn't for want of trying.
Yeah, one of those games where I think we could have played until now and we'd only scored one. It just seems like one of those where we just couldn't get we made the chances, we just couldn't take them. Waters, a couple of very good opportunities, missed them. I think probably if that Luke O'Connell goal counter in the first half, it's probably a different story because we'd have gone 1-0 up then, and sort of if we carry on playing the way we would have done, a little fortune would have been on our side. But it's one of those games where you'd rather play like that and lose rather than not create them chances in the first place, because on a different day, we'd be 2 or 3 out of sight before Bristol Rovers have even really got a meaningful attack going. But fair play for them to sort of digging in through that period and going out the other side. It's just a shame of sort of the lack of clinical nature that we had on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake, what have you made of Barnsley this season from an outside Lincoln City perspective?
Well, we played them really early in the season. And I thought it was 2 really, really bad teams, actually. And they just about beat us. Should have had a penalty, but such is life. What I think about Barnsley, if Barnsley are going to finish in the playoffs, and they're in a very strong position to do so at this minute in time, that home form's got to improve, like, massively. So you look at the home and away records. Barnsley are 3rd in the away record, played 13, 25 points, going nicely away from home, 2 points a game nearly. You know, that's a decent return, but 17 points from 13 home games has them 17th in the league. And for me, I mean, certainly for the last couple of years while we've been competing with Barnsley at this sort of level, that home record has just not been good enough. And I can't put my finger on it, because you look at the players, they've got a really good playing squad, Gab, and well, you certainly did, underplayed it in the summer in terms of depth. And I actually go back to that podcast that we did, Gab, at the start of the summer, and I said, well, Barnsley have got Davis Keeler-Dunn coming in. And I put quite a lot of my eggs in the Keeler-Dunn basket. And all of a sudden, he seems to be Barnsley's main man. So, yeah, I mean, it's the home form. Any ideas, Josh, why that home form hasn't improved whatsoever? Is it, I feel like potentially Barnsley are better when, like, there's no pressure. Like, there's no pressure. Well, you look at the playoffs, so at Bolton last year, the pressure was on you to get a result in that first game. You I don't want to say you bottled it, but you didn't play your best. Then you go to the tough sheet where everyone's going, oh, but Barnsley are out of it completely, and you go and turn them over and nearly get yourself into a playoff final. Like, what is it? Genuinely, what is it?
It's so weird because it's not like teams even come and just sit back against us and sort of like just park 10 behind the ball. We can't break them down. It's been silly things this season. It sort of all stems back to last season under Neil Collins. Of every goal we concede, it's more or less coming from a mistake. Someone would make a mistake. I think Northampton were one that sort of rings a bell of Selena drops the ball from across straight to their striker, and it's just small little things like that, and it starts to add up, and then it sort of becomes a thing from that of, well, we've not won X amount of games, we're struggling at home, we've not won in 5, we've not won in 6, and then it becomes a mental thing. There's no real reason why, because we normally set off all right, but there's almost this eeriness in the atmosphere of, something's going to go wrong at some point, no matter 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, you just know
5-1.
Yeah, exactly. You just know that something's going to go wrong at some point, and the other team will get back into it, and it just makes it so difficult. And I think as soon as it gets tense in Oakwell, the players feel it, and you can sort of see them start to stiffen up, shrivel up. No one's taking an extra touch. It's ball comes into it, first time it's going anywhere, and it's just like just take your time. You're professional players. If you play exactly how you have done when it was 0-0, we'd be fine. But because now we're 2-1 up, we'll fall apart.
Do you feel like you need to bring in some more experience? Like, obviously, you look at your squad. I'm not quite sure I see many leaders in the Barnsley squad. Do you think that maybe this month and remaining of the transfer window, do you think Darrell Clarke should be focusing on bringing in some real experience that's maybe potentially been at the top end of League One and been there, got the T-shirt? Do you think that would benefit the group?
I think so, especially in a striker sense, because it's sort of, you look back at that Bristol Rovers game, and it's been its goal difference isn't great. Goals conceded is terrible for sort of position in which we are in. And it's sort of, we need that leader. We got Matt Roberts in, which I thought would have sort of helped plug that gap defensively. He's been helpful. He's probably put an arm around players and sort of been a little bit of a stalwart at times, but he needs help in that back three. I think playing a back three in Matt Roberts, he turns like milk. I love the guy, but he turns like milk. It's not his game plan. It's high line back three. It's not for him as such. We need a forward in, someone similar to when we had James Norwood, who, especially in that playoff final against Sheffield Wednesday, he came on. We've got 10 men, and he just grabbed that game by scruff of his neck. We need someone just at that focal point up front that can give us that, who's got the experience, who can buy a free kick when we need it to sort of.
It's like, because I look at Davis Keeler-Dunn and I look at Stephen Humphreys, and it's not that they're bad forwards, because they're both forwards who can make something happen in the final third. But it's about that striker who can just really make it stick in the final third and bring everyone else, bring either a Stephen Humphreys or a Davis Keeler-Dunn and an Adam Phillips into the game and really make it a trio or a combination, as opposed to, maybe those sort of individual players who can each sort of make something happen, but a little bit more sort of disconnected.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. It was like that sort of beginning part of the season, as you mentioned. Then Jake took two post sides. We played Lincoln. It's almost like Darrell Clarke. It took him 2-3 months to work out his best 11.
Yeah,
especially in that midfield three, because it got Connell, Russell, Phillips, Matty Craig at the time, and then Mwakali's coming sort of not from nowhere, but because it took him so long to get into the first team. I think he's now understood you can't just play your best three midfielders and it's going to work. It's either Luca Connell or Mwakali, and sort of Russell and Phillips after playing that. It'd be lovely to play Connell and Mwakali and Phillips and it all works together, but it's just not working like that. And I think in that sort of that forward sense, that's been something else. We know DKD can sort of play in the 10, but we've been sticking him out on the left hand side just to try and shoehorn him into the side. It started working a little bit more now. He's got to grips with what's sort of required of him. But I think sort of it needs something up front, just somewhere with that experience, just to help knit it all together on a more consistent basis. Because at the minute we're inconsistent from 10 minutes to 10 minutes sometimes, or sometimes we might get a good half together and the second half will be poor. We just need to get that consistency together, I think.
So, talk to me about Kelechi Nwakali, Josh, and the passing range that he's brought to Barnsley's midfield.
He's the perfect quarterback in terms of just being able to do that, especially
an American term.
I'm trying to get into that Birmingham lingo with Tom Brady. It's very sort of the passing range in which he brings. It really helps with the formation we play of the wing backs, because the balls that he sprays out wide, particularly to Corey O'Keefe, O'Keefe doesn't have to break his stride when he's receiving the ball. He can receive it sort of on it at full pace. It'll land right on his foot and he carries it on. There's been a few recently, especially over that Christmas period, goals in which we scored from Mwakali, sort of playing it out to O'Keefe and then cutting the cross back. A little bit reminiscent of what Rodri would do for Man City in a way of just sort of recycling possession. I think the sort of eye testing which he does somewhat fail on is just the combative nature of midfield, especially in that holding, anchoring position that you sort of expect, like Luca Connell. He'll get a booking at some point in a game. He's gonna be feisty. He's gonna be combative. Whereas Mwakali's just more cultured in terms of that's not necessarily where he thrives in. But if you're passing the ball, no matter time, if he's got time or not, he'll retain possession and he will create. Whereas he's probably got a little bit more creativity than Luca in that sense. And I think, given that we are one of the better sides in the league, it probably just lends itself to be that, because there's not really too many teams that we're going to need an actual destroyer in midfield who can just break up play and just play a nice little 5-yard pass. It's going to be someone that you need to help sort of create from that deep role and sort of remove that pass that would be, if someone did destroy it, to pass it to Adam Phillips to then create the move. It's starting straight from there to sort of get Phillips even further up the pitch as well.
Absolutely. So playoff chances then, Josh. Talk to me. How are you feeling?
I feel confident. I think the reason why is from what's happening on the teams above us. I didn't think at the start of the season that we'll make top 6, given sort of the strength of Huddersfield coming down, Birmingham chucking 100 million at this league. So I sort of knew top 2 would be sort of a little bit out of our reach this season. And then sides like Mansfield doing well, Stockport, Wrexham, the sides that have come up have all more or less done well, barring Crawley. So it's made it very competitive, especially in around that top 6. With Wickham losing Bloomfield, and it's not exactly sure what's going to happen with Coney yet either. So if they lose Coney, I don't see Wickham sort of sustaining that position for too long, because there's just a bit too much change. It can be similar to what happened in 2016, where new manager comes in and just sort of continues on that same run, which they're already. And I think a lot of sides all change how they play against Wrexham. I think Wrexham will get a lot more respect in terms of sides won't come up to try and attack them and go and beat them. They'll try to play for a point instead. And I think they might struggle with that. More and more recently, it's been them last-minute goals that have been keeping them in it. I'm not sure Stephen Fletcher can continue to do that at his age, for one, of coming in and rescuing sort of 3 points and a point for him. It just seems unsustainable in terms of that. So I don't see them being too much of a threat. I think Huddersfield and Birmingham for a top two is more or less, I'd say, nearly nailed on. And I'm not too sure if the sides behind us can continue their form to continue catching us up in a way. So I don't think we'll push for top two. We'll finish 4th or 5th, I think.
Interesting. We'll see. Interesting to get your views, and hopefully that's right. Josh, thanks so much for your time and insight on Barnsley.
Look forward to seeing you at Wembley playoff final, mate. Bolton Barnsley.
Nailed on.
You wish, Colin.
We haven't played each other in a cup, so would you an extra game at some
point?
We're
due a game, aren't we? So yeah, that'll be the one, won't it?
Yeah, exactly.
See you in there, mate. See you in there.
See you there.
Brilliant stuff. Delighted to be joined by Russ Morell from Amber and Blue of Mansfield Town. Good evening, Russ. And I don't know how much you're expecting to be in the playoff conversation in League One this season, rather than the sort of relegation dogfight chat. But I suppose it's a sign of how much you've got right this year.
Well, I'll be honest. I thought last season was like living a dream. This season for me just gets better. I think if you speak to any Mansfield Town fan, did they expect to be where we are at the minute? Probably not. But I didn't think we'd get relegated. I didn't think we'd get dragged into that. I think the thing is with Nigel Clough's teams, there are no superstars really. It's just a group of players that work together solidly. And I think that's what's happened this season. That the players are all working for each other. There's no real big hitters. I know people will say Gregory's a big hitter and Flint maybe, but realistically, there's no one there that stands out as like, you don't look at Mansfield and pick one player out.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Flint, because Flint's been axed from the team recently, because it's been Jordan Bowery starting in central defence with Flint and Alfie Kilgore on the bench. And it does seem like a classic Nigel Clough move that we've talked about on this podcast with Sam Bincher a lot, that he doesn't mind putting players out of position. And there's part of me, and I feel reluctant to question it too much, because Nigel Clough's record at Mansfield Town has been fantastic, and it's to his credit, and it's not by accident when you deliver that sort of progress, those sorts of results over 4 or 5 years. At the same time, I find it slightly confusing that, why do you have Jordan Bowery at centre half, who's been a League Two striker in his career, over a recent Championship centre half in Aidan Flint? It doesn't sort of quite add up for me.
I think personally that the start of the season, obviously Flint got a little bit injury, but kind of struggled at the start of the season as well. If you look at our early games and the goals we conceded, now I'm not going to come on here and say it's all Aidan's fault, because it's not. However, I think Jordan offers at the back different to what Flint is, and the difference is pace. If you look at our back line, so to speak, especially the central defenders, they're not blessed with the best of pace. So if you've got someone that's quite pacey up front for an opposing team, like Wickham, let's say Coney, we know how fast that lad is. Putting someone like Flint against him, if he gets past him, he ain't going to catch him up. And that's not to Flint's detriment. It's just pace isn't part of his game. Whereas Jordan might not be a better defender than Aidan Flint, but has got that little bit of pace, so that if he does get past him, there's that theory that he might be able to get back and get a foot in.
Yeah, I can understand that argument, but I would still say the trade-off would be preferable. I can understand playing Jordan Bowery if you've got no other centre halves and it's only youth team options. Then yeah, by all means, play in there and you can do a job, which he has done brilliantly at times. But I would also could imagine if you're in Aidan Flint or Alfie Kilgore's shoes, feeling a little bit put out that a striker by trade is starting ahead of you.
Yeah, I get that, but I would say now that Jordan's probably been playing at the back more or less near on 3 seasons now. I think the days of Jordan being recognised as a striker is probably over.
Okay,
I think he's more happy. We've spoke to Jordan a couple of times, and he's just happy to play. He's like a young lad, to be fair. If the gaffer needs him somewhere, he'll go. But I think with him playing in that position now over 3 seasons, I think naturally he's kind of built himself into it, and he's played with the likes of Aidan Flint at the side of him and Alfie Kilgore. And, you know, I think it helped Lewis Brunt last season. You know, Lewis Brunt stepped up his game and kicked on because he had someone like Aidan Flint next to him. Because even if Aidan Flint's not playing every game, you're training with him every week. And, you know, he's a fountain of knowledge, isn't he? He's been there, he's done that. So for a young lad and for someone learning the trade at the back as well, it's probably really helpful to have him there.
Yeah, it's a great point. I just feels a little bit to me like kind of overthinking it. I would probably say maybe just make sure that you've got the protection from the fullbacks and kind of trust Aidan Flint to get his positioning right, or Ralphie Kilgore rather than. But we can go sort of back and forth on that. But that's just my feeling on it. But I wanted to ask you about who you feel your key players have been at the moment, because Hiram Boateng on the highlights of the game against Wycombe was the one who kind of caught my eye.
Yeah, I thought Boateng was, to be fair, he was unlucky to be subbed because that is one of his better games. And I think with Boateng, he's very inconsistent. Like, if he wants to be in that game, he's absolutely fantastic, but sometimes he's anonymous. Bolton, prime example, when Bolton beat us at their place, we were 1-0 up. And I still think now, being honest, Bolton would have scored and we'd have probably took the draw. I think it was heading that way. However, Boateng was running the middle of the midfield. He was having a really good game. And then, bang, he gets a silly second booking for a tackle he didn't need to make. And then we go on to concede 3 goals. And that's the thing. It's the consistency with Boateng. It's like he'll have one good game, but then you won't see him for a couple of others. And it's a shame because I like him, and there's a player there. We thought he struggled at League 2, but when we said we got promoted, we thought because it's a bit more technical in League 1, there's a bit more football going on. Boateng's done really well, but I think for me, standout players, close your ears, Burton fans, Deji Oshilaja, absolute brick wall of a signing. Literally, I'd trust him to carry anything. He's been superb. I know. They want much fanfare when we signed him. Burton fans were like, it's crap, is this, is that. Nigel's brought him in. He's played him in front of the 2 centre-backs. He's played him at centre-back. And he's just been fantastic. And, you know, we lost to Wigan in the FA Cup and Deji didn't play. And you can tell we missed that strength and that power. And yet it's just him. And I would probably say, I know people are going to say Gregory for his goals, but I think Will Evans has made the step up to League 1. Absolutely fantastic. Such a workhorse, such a likeable lad as well. He just wants to play football. He wants to get the ball and he wants to do well. And I think it shows.
Tick.
and then my last one, Aaron Lewis. Having an exceptional season for Mansfield. I think for me in that midfield, he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet. I think if you look at him from last season to this season, the step up he's made has been fantastic. And I will probably say he's been our most improved player from making the step up.
That surprises me. Sorry, Cole. Just on Aaron Lewis, because he played for Lincoln, I think it was maybe 4 years ago now, when we first came into the league. I was actually quite disappointed. So what's he, how has he been able to adapt to the level, Ross? Because like I say, the only thing he's known at for Lincoln is snapping the hell out of Richarlison in the Carabao Cup. He's got that bit of bite about him. That was all we saw. What sort of qualities has he got that's made the step up?
So for us, Nigel's kind of put him on the left side of the wing where Stephen Quinn played predominantly last season. Okay. And he's not afraid now to take the ball, to run at people, to put a cross in. His tackling's improved. He's just whole work rate. It seems to be that he's really settled down in this Mansfield team and he's putting that little bit more of effort in. I wouldn't say he's the first one to put a tackle in midfield. I think if you ask me where the weakest part of the team is, that's where it is. We miss Ollie Clark in that respect. We haven't got that midfielder with a little bit of bite. But I just think for Lewis, the time on the ball, he's passing, he's running. I think he gets unnoticed quite a bit, but there's a reason he's had quite a few man of the matches this season.
Yeah, I was going to actually talk about Boateng very quickly earlier on, but I wasn't quite quick enough. I'd seen him 3 times this season. In all 3 games, he's had a really good game, a crap game, and an indifferent game. So when you're saying about his inconsistencies, I totally agree. So the first game we played you again, it was again in the League Cup at our place. I thought it was fantastic. Obviously, you lost a game on pens, but whatever. The game he played really well. The second game was the one at our place in the league. Like you said, he got sent off, bizarrely. And the third one was at your place when you squeezed past us. He might as well not been on pitch. He was so insignificant and so I'm definitely on board with what you're saying, because the first time I'd seen him play was against us in the cup, and I thought, tell you what, he's got a bit in, and then, like you say, very inconsistent. That's all I was going to say on the matter.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, personally, so far this season, the games against Bolton, all 3 of them have been my favourite games of the season. Forgetting scores, I just think they've been real battles, and I remember going to Bolton and watching that cup game and thinking, we can compete at this level. This is Bolton who we're playing and we're holding on. And I think for me, that's when it started clicking where, we've not come to be a bottom end team. We're actually going to try and hold our own.
Yeah.
So, Russ, you must feel really proud of what you're seeing at the moment and the quality of football that you're producing and how competitive you've been in League One. Is there... on the one hand, I imagine you're looking to, can we make sure that we get to 50 points as soon as possible and make sure that we sort of stay up, because you've not been in this level for a long, long time. You might give me the year you were last. Was it
21 years?
21 years. Thank you. So it's a long time since you've been at this level. So to stay up will be another great achievement. At the same time, is there part of you that's looking at that playoff scramble and thinking, there might be a sixth spot that could be inviting us a little bit?
Do you know what? I'll be honest. Not really. My sole intention this season has been to stay up. Anything else is an absolute bonus. Like I say, when we came up, I was buzzing. But then when the fixtures come out and you look at your Huddersfields, your Birminghams, your Boltons, your Choltons, Lincoln, they're big teams at this level. And, this is our first season in it for 21 years. So for me, it was just a case of let's just settle down and stay in this league.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly doing that.
I like you, Russ. Even though you're an answer, I like you, man.
Sorry, Russ.
I like that.
I had to mute myself.
Brilliant stuff. Russ, well, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Catch up soon.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.
Delighted to be joined now by Claire from the Hatters Hangout podcast on Stockport County. Good evening, Claire. Thanks so much for your time this evening. Stockport County 3-1 victory at Reading last time out. I know you used to have a striker forward called Louis somebody, but forgotten all about it now.
I think a lot of people were a little bit concerned about where we'd go, because obviously he'd contributed more than 50% of our goals in the season. But I kind of think because of obviously his record speaks for itself. What we've done is we've just played to other people's strengths, and I think that showed when we played Reading, and we were really, really dominant. I think 3 goals is a bit lucky for Reading, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'm wondering is whether, because Barry was very much a wide forward, right? Played off the left and kind of cut it inside and was absolutely phenomenal. What I'm wondering is, if the silver lining of him leaving is that it does allow Dave Challoner to maybe home in more on a real partnership between Carl Wootton and Isaac Oliafe, because you're allowed to use them more as a partnership as opposed to sort of using them as part of a front three, and are there signs that can create some chances for you in that 3-1 victory at Reading?
Yeah, I think even if you look back to last season, when Louis Barry was with us again, but he was injured, we had to go down playing that route. So I think the adaptive nature of, our squad means that is something that we can do, hopefully, quite easily. Saying that, we have just announced a new player, Micah Hamilton from Middlesbrough. And I know in the summer he was linked to a lot of Championship clubs. Obviously, he went to Borough, and he's played quite a few games for them, to be fair. But just in the last few weeks, he's not really been getting his chance. So he wanted to go out and play first team football. I think probably one of the things that swayed him is that he's a Manchester boy. So it's effectively coming home, isn't he? I just think, I don't know, maybe we had a little bit of a blip over Christmas. But it's just exciting because now we need to just play a different style of football. We need to get the identity that, we're Stockport County. We're not and how much I love Louis. We're not Louis Barry, we're Stockport County. So players will come and go. You just have to find the next person, don't you?
Certainly do. Jake, you were making a sort of salivating face of sorts at the name Micah Hamilton.
I'm really impressed with Micah Hamilton. Really impressed. I really didn't think he was going to go out on loan. I watched a lot of him when he was at City. I remember he made his debut, I think, in the Champions League away at, I want to say it was Red Star Belgrade or somewhere in Eastern Europe, and he scored, and he looked really, really bright. And I've done a bit of work in terms of youth football, and he was always a really bright player coming out of City's academy, and he made the first team really young. And I was initially surprised that City let him out to go to Borough. I thought that was going to be on a loan deal because City quite like him. But for now, to see him in League One and knowing that Lincoln are going to come up against him in right at the end of the season absolutely terrifies me, because he's quick, powerful, he's got end product. I really think that he can massively subsidise the loss of Louis Barry. And if I was Claire, and obviously I'm not, I'm Jake, I'd be very, very excited to see how he develops, because Stockport have, over the last sort of, since they've been back in the league, have been very good at developing other people's talent for them. And Louis Barry is clearly another example, and they'll be hoping that Micah Hamilton can really showcase that as well.
Jake, just on that, what would you say is Micah Hamilton's best position? Is it the same position as Louis Barry? Or?
I think out wide, yeah. I think out wide is probably, and he's kind of one of those that is. I'll tell you who I compare him to a little bit, perhaps, but the other way around. McAtee, James McAtee at Man City, who plays in the 10 normally, but can do a job out wide. Micah Hamilton can do a job in the 10, but is predominantly a wide player. So I think that it would be a really, really good fit. And obviously, if he can play out wide, he's got to get past Jack Diamond first, though, right, Claire? He's unbelievable. I'm
really glad that Jack took his chance on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think, what that poor lad has been through.
Yeah.
And I just really hope that we can give him that, that step back that he really deserves. Just let him have a bit of time just playing football, and hopefully, because that must have been such a mental, a really hard mental time for him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully he can take that opportunity. I think he's been in for a little bit of stick when he's maybe missed a couple of sitters, but it happens, doesn't it? It's football. It's not like if every chance went in, we'd be seeing 150 scorelines every week, wouldn't we? I'm just, I don't know, I think we're extremely lucky that obviously we are now seen as such a progressive club, and, we've got the plan that our owner, has put in place, Mark Stott. I just class us as really lucky given what we've been through over the last few years. And when you look at what's going on with the likes of Morecambe, obviously that statement that's come out today, which
absolutely
just absolutely awful. I just feel really lucky that we have an owner like Mark Stott that's going to progress us and that's going to, you know, keep doing stuff for the town of Stockport, most importantly. But because of the way he's looking after our club, like, we're getting the chance to see these players that are coming in and improving. Like, I just feel incredibly lucky, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it's always
That's,
nice, isn't it, to be able to...
Sorry, I was going to say, that's refreshing, isn't it? Like, hearing a football fan just being grateful and lucky for the current situation. It's quite refreshing to hear that, Claire, to be fair. You're obviously content and realistic and happy with your season, which is good. And obviously the future is bright as well, isn't it? So that's always a positive as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think I know a lot of people now are like, you know, let it go, it's the past. But seeing where we were, I do just feel really lucky that we're in the position we are now. And I think probably all of us on this now have been through a point where we didn't think our club would sort of get through difficult patches. I just think, I mean, sorry, I know I've gone off on a tangent, Gab. I do apologise.
No, that's really important. Yeah.
When you've got an owner like we've got, who is the kind of person he is, it just shows even more of a clear picture how, like, I'm using Morecambe as an example again, how an owner can really, like, just kill a club off, because that's effectively what he's doing. And having seen our club sort of almost go out of business on more than one or two occasions, I just think it's really important to find the right people now to do that. And yeah, I'm just really, like, I am grateful and I'm happy with where we are at the moment. I know we've got more signings to come in, and yeah, just enjoy it.
Brilliant stuff. What I wanted to ask you about Ethan Pye, Claire, because I imagine if you had to put a valuation on him, I think it would be pie in the sky, wouldn't it? Because he's certainly going to command.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I know, yeah.
It was coming.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I think obviously we sent Ethan out on loan to Gateshead a couple of years ago, and he came back and he's really, really sort of taken his chance since, and he's just continued to get better and better. I really rate him, and in fact I think I don't often make bold claims like this, but I think he could go all the way to the top of the game. Is a young lad, but is a young lad.
Is it your Harry Redknapp moment, Claire?
Don't quote me on it if it doesn't happen. It's like an old head on young shoulders, if that makes sense. And he's really sensible, but he's really hardworking. And I just think, yeah, you just see him improve all the time. And I really, really, really rate him. I genuinely think he could go all the way.
Well, very exciting times then for Stockport County. Claire, playoff chances, do you feel like you're in with a sniff, given what we've talked about earlier in the podcast, which is the bar for the top six in League One might be relatively low this year?
Oh, thanks.
No, I mean in terms of the teams around you.
No, do you know, sorry, I'm picking on you today, Anna. I don't know. Obviously, it's like, I hate making predictions, and you ask me like questions all the time where I'm like,
who would have thought you'd be going onto a podcast and getting questions?
Yeah, we've got a chance of it. You know, I truly believe we've got a chance of it. Are we ready for it? There's another question. Because
might be a year off, perhaps, you think?
Yeah, because even though we are progressing, you can progress too quick. And you don't want to go up too soon and then end up suffering. So I think that, in my honest opinion, my head tells me just miss out, but my heart tells me we'll just sniff into him, but not get through.
No, yeah, you're right, Claire. It's far too soon. Just have another season in League One. Just let us have your spot, and then yeah, that'll do. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Good idea.
good luck with your new manager, eh?
I don't know who that is. Could be Dave Chandler yet, for all we know.
Oh, here he goes. Don't listen to him,
You
Claire.
can dream, you can dream.
It's exactly that.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Claire, thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to catching up later in the season.
Thanks for having me. Take care,
Yes.
guys.
Cheers, Claire.
Jake, I wanted to ask you about Lincoln City and whether you
don't
still
bother.
feel you're in the playoff mix. You did get that 1-0 victory at Northampton last time out. You're 6 points off, not an insurmountable gap. Do you still
We're
feel
back.
that with the right
We're back.
recruitment, you've got it in you to make
Yeah, we're
that
back,
jump?
mate. Yeah, we're back. We're back, Gab. What this group needed, Gab, in January was experience and know-how. It's the third youngest squad on paper, and we've brought in. I can understand why people maybe hold reservations over on paper. Sam Clucas played 500 games, including some in the Premier League. He's gone for multi-millions of pounds. Is a Lincoln lad. Will mean a lot to him to come back and help the group. And I actually think our midfielders will learn an awful lot off someone like Sam. The big one for me is James Collins up front. I think he really is going to unlock Freddie Draper. I think he's really going to unlock Bailey Cadamartri if he's fit. Doesn't sound like he is at the moment, but I think we're in with a shout, Gab. I mean, for example, I'm not saying this is going to happen. Say not to bring Bolton into it, but Cole's here, so why not? If Bolton lose on Saturday and we beat Peterborough, us and Bolton are on the same points after the same games played. So if you're including Bolton in it, I think you'd probably have to include Lincoln in it. I think we stand a chance, Gab. Traditionally, obviously, this is when we start to get better. You look at last season, this is the point where we started winning, and we're hoping that this game against Northampton. I draw a lot of parallels to the game a year ago away at Burton, which started the winning machine, as Nappers famously calls it. But the winning, we started winning and we just couldn't stop. So hopefully it's similar. I mean, obviously we are probably weaker than we were this time last year, but so is the league. So yeah, I mean, we've got some big injuries to some big players. George Wickens, who probably didn't have the best start of the season, but since 2025 has started to get better. He then got injured. You've got Jack Moylan now out for quite a sustained period of time. That's a really big miss because Jack Moylan's been really tidy this year. And Bailey Cadamartri, like I say, he's out for a couple of weeks as well. So, I think we're with a shout, Gab. Probably an outside shout when you look at the graphic that you've produced for this. I'll probably say this at the minute. Obviously, we're sat here on the 23rd of Jan. Probably 3 or 4 teams better than us at the moment. And those are Barnsley, Stockport, Leyton Orient, and Bolton. I think the other teams, I think we're as good as, or if not better than.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Jake. If I look at it, I think Barnsley and Stockport for now, maybe a little bit of a level above Lincoln, but I also think in terms of between now and the end of the season, I think there is a possibility sorry, Carl's just said in the comments, where have we gone? So I've got it up on
we're just looking at the graphic, mate. Don't worry.
So I would say that I would say Barnsley, Stockport, Leyton Orient right now, and Bolton with the sort of expected impact of a new manager.
Sorry, Gab. I think we can be better than 2 or 3 more of those. The caveat is if we start playing to the level that we have been, because before Christmas, Gab, and it's fact, we've been in the playoffs for more weeks than we hadn't been. So clearly this group are capable of performing to a top 6 level. We've been hanging around or just outside by a space or 2. So clearly we can do it. I think we've got a really nice run of games coming up now. We've got Peterborough and Blackpool this week in the next couple of days at home, both below us in the table. Then we go to Wigan. We've got Cambridge and we've got Burton as well. I think there's Shrewsbury potentially thrown into that as well. So we've got a really nice sort of run of games up until the start of March. So if we can maybe win 3 or 4, it's the same as what everyone's saying, really. I remember Matt saying it. They've got some winnable games. If we can, similar to what he said, really, if we can get 3 or 4 wins out of that 5-game block, all of a sudden you put yourself right in the picture again where Barnes and Stockport are. or you make yourself very close. Because the fact of the matter is, Gab, the teams from 5th to the teams to 13th that we're covering tonight are not all consistent enough to win on a regular basis.
I agree. Yeah.
If you win 3 or 4, and it's happened with Leyton Orient. Leyton Orient won a load of games in a row and have shot themselves right in there. So I don't think we're out of it, Gab. I don't think we're out of it. I'm not. If you ask me today, are Lincoln going to finish in the playoffs? My answer is no. But all of a sudden, in 4 weeks' time, if we won 4 out of the next 5, then my answer might change. So it's all up in the air a little bit, but we've definitely got the potential to finish in the playoffs, definitely for sure.
Cole, would you agree with me that if Bolton get this appointment right, they finish top 6?
Now, this is the important bit now, because I need to take my rose-tinted glasses off for a second and just have a little think about it. Because
they're very tinted. Very tinted.
Yeah. I think the instant reaction to that would be to say yes. However, it's not just the appointment that's important, Gab. We have 2 weeks-ish, less than 2 weeks of the transfer window remaining. We have a huge Dion Charles-shaped hole in our team, which is very, very important that we fill that position with a player of similar, if not better, goal-scoring ability. So that's a challenge within itself.
That's the tough one, Cole.
Absolutely.
Everyone's after a 9. Everyone wants a 9 in January. Everybody. So I mean, I don't know where you think you might. Have you guys been linked with anybody, or?
Probably shouldn't say this. I probably shouldn't say
no,
this.
If there's anything confidential, don't.
Yeah, I'm not going to do. But yes, there's 1 or 2, or certainly there was before Ian Evatt got the boot. 1 or 2 centre forwards in the conversation.
Is there one you'd like? Is there one that you'd like?
Yes, absolutely. And he plays at a higher level. But we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of moving parts to that. Obviously, the manager situation's huge. But like Gab said, get the appointment right. Then yeah, absolutely.
I'm pretty confident that you get top 6 with the right appointment, because I think even if you look at Ian Evatt's last game in charge against Charlton, I would argue that was maybe one of the better performances of the season in terms of the
in
terms of the energy and the link-up play that we saw in certain moments. And I think that Bolton are already very close. I think squad-wise, the individual qualities there. Certainly in midfield with Sheehan and Morley, who are 2 quality players at this level. Yeah. And then I think you bring in a fresh face. I mean, half the battle is somebody new with a different relationship to the players, a different dynamic. All of a sudden, I think it wouldn't take much for the team to sort of shoot up in form.
And the key to it is not the key. A big part of that is the fans, having the fans back on side, because during the end of Ian Evatt's tenure, he'd lost the fans completely, and they were starting to feel that obviously within the ground. As good as the ground can be when it's full and it's everyone's going the right direction, obviously the opposite effect when things aren't going well. So not only have you got a manager with fresh ideas, a new voice, but you've got the fans back on side. And yeah, they get the appointment right, and I think we could probably go on a bit of a crazy run, because, like you said, the players are well good enough. I mean, Joel Randall, for example, the other day was fantastic. You can clearly see why we brought him to the football club.
Do you know what I think about Joel Randall, though, Cole? I think he's somebody who isn't necessarily going to hit the big numbers himself, but he can make players around him better.
His movement's phenomenal. His movements off the ball is phenomenal. You can see he's a very intelligent footballer.
For instance, I don't think Efron Mason-Clark and Kwame Poku have the season they did last year for Peterborough without Joel Randall kind of being the link man and bring it all together. Yeah. So I think he can be a really valuable system player in that.
You can see he creates space, and you put what I think we need personally is an experienced centre forward in the mix who knows where the net is at this level. And yeah, he'll SHIT goals, in fairness, because of the amount of space that he creates and the players around him, like your Aaron Collins and Josh Sheehan and Aaron Morley, and obviously the list is pretty endless. So yeah, I think to answer your question, I do think we can make it, but there's a couple of different moving parts that will contribute to that, Gav.
So, have either of you got another 10 minutes or so? I know I've kept you for a long time.
Yeah, the game will kick off for 25, Gab. So let's roll.
Okay, fine. So, I'm going to set us a challenge between the three of us to rank these 9 teams in order of playoff credentials. Now, who would we kind of nominate for number 1 here? I would put forward Bolton Wanderers. Would anyone? What do you think, Jake? Would you go with?
Have you seen them play football, Gab, recently?
I have. I thought they actually played quite well against Charlton, and I think that there's going to be a new manager impact because of the quality of their squad. It is a big thing to sort of hang my hat on that, but I also think if you're comparing them with someone like Barnsley, I also think Barnsley have a horror show in them from time to time as well. So I don't think it's going to take them much.
I think that's fair. I think Bolton, out of all of them teams, have by far the best squad on paper, which football has famously not played. I do wonder, and this is the one thing that maybe I would potentially look to rank somebody higher than Bolton, would be confidence in this group. Seems to be at a real low.
But I think that's what the manager will give us, though. I think that's what Gab's getting at, really,
potentially. I mean, but it's all well and good saying the manager will come in and Bolton will just start lifting off. But what happens if it doesn't? What happens if the new manager, if the manager comes in, let's say for all intents and purposes, Schumacher comes in and struggles to get his style of football that was so progressive at Argyle into this Bolton team, and they all of a sudden they're not playing well and not picking up results. So I'd probably say, I mean, I haven't said that. I'm going to completely go back on myself and say Bolton probably are the most likely.
Okay.
Out of the rest of them.
You'd go along with that presumably as well, Cole? Would you?
I'm looking at the table now. Flash your teams up again, Gab.
Sure. So Barnsley, Stockport, Reading, Leyton Orient, Bolton, Charlton, Mansfield, Lincoln, and Rotherham.
Obviously, recency bias would suggest that we wouldn't be in that top of them 9 teams referenced, given what the three of us clearly agree on, and the likelihood is that the board of directors and the ownership group will get this appointment right. And I would suspect they've probably been doing the due diligence and may very well have interviewed or certainly spoke to people before Ian Evatt being sacked. So I do think they'll get the appointment right. So yeah, I do think we'll finish in that top.
Can I throw a caveat into that? We were speaking at the game in last month, Cole, weren't we, in the fan zone? And you and Chris and his lad, I can't remember his name, lovely bloke with the pizza. You were telling me about in terms of behind the scenes and like the people that aren't in position. So the fact that you had a chief exec and you still hadn't replaced him in Neil Hart, or you've not got anyone. I think I would caveat the fact that they might not get the appointment because they maybe don't have football people behind the scenes at Bolton.
They've got Chris Markham, who effectively makes the signings, and Ludonautic's, who is the fella at Liverpool, he owns Ludonautic's, the data analytic company for signing players. I think that they'll make the signing based on the squad and the players that will sign as opposed to anything else. So I do think they'll get that right, because straight away Schumacher, he fits the bill from a tactical standpoint, doesn't he, as much as anything else. So I do think they'll get the appointment right. I think the reason why they're hanging off that appointment of that director of football is because I think if we were to get promoted, they probably want somebody with a bit more experience in the higher 2 divisions, because it's such a critical role. So that's what I think. Maybe the delay on that. They're not stupid people. These guys.
Jake, I wasn't trying to imply they were.
But it's a fair point to make. But I do think they'll get the appointment right, just because they'll make the appointment based on the players and the style that we have at our disposal.
Okay, so I think we're all broadly in agreement on Bolton, and then I think I would go with Barnsley sort of behind that, just because they're the highest of the 9 at the moment. They're also in good form, which helps. I'm not 100% on Barnsley this season, but I think they're probably the best of, based on the form and sort of league position.
I'll go next if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to go for Stockport in that
Stockport.
next one.
That's right. I was about to say the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, only because I feel that there's less pressure on them as well. I think as a football club, was it Claire, the girl who came on before?
Yeah.
She was clearly stating that she's just grateful of their current situation. So that indicates to me that when push comes to shove, not only have they got decent players for the level and they've proved it so far this season, obviously signing that lad from Borough is going to help as well. And she also said that they've got 1 or 2 others coming in as well. I think that pressure is less on them as well as a football club. So I think that might, help them in terms of the results.
My biggest advocate for Stockport was momentum. Momentum is absolutely massive when flying, and it might be too early for Stockport in terms of getting in the playoffs, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe you could say the same thing about Wrexham potentially being too early, given we've sort of guaranteed that we think Wrexham are probably going to do it. I think riding the high in which Stockport are, and in fact that they've come up so successfully and so quickly. All the fans are on the same page. They're all behind the manager. They're all behind the players. And momentum, we've all seen it at our clubs. Gab, you're probably going to want to see it next year when you get promoted into the champ. You'll see what momentum can do for Birmingham City.
Sure.
So, speaking from a Lincoln point of view, when you've got momentum, we went into League Two, Gab, with so much momentum, and we finished playoffs first season. Stockport did the same in League Two when they first came up. They lost the final to Carlisle, but they finished in the top 7. That's my biggest, as well as the squad, the quality of the squad in terms of all the teams that I've seen.
Norwood in midfield as well, by the way.
We've
talked about Nwakali for Barnsley, but actually Stockport have Norwood who's spraying it around and brilliant.
In terms of all them teams that I've seen play live, and I've seen them all play, some of them twice, Stockport are mustard compared to anyone else on that list.
Okay.
But for me, because if Bolton get the appointment right, then they're probably going to start playing where they probably should do. So I'd probably say Bolton, then Stockport, and then probably say Barnsley third would be my guess.
But then I suppose what I would bring up is Lincoln City, Jake. You've got you've got a pedigree of having done it. Having found form at this level before in a previous campaign, whereas Stockport County don't have that same pedigree, especially without Louis Barry. So if we're saying Stockport second, like how far off a Lincoln there? Because I think if you can find a formula, if James Collins can make an impact for you guys with that extra bit of experience, maybe Lincoln are probably at a similar level to Stockport.
Yeah, under the same manager as well that's done it at this level. I take your point. I think that's. I think. Well, I mean, we beat Stockport, so I suppose that sort of tells you that on the game, if you play each other head to head, we can beat them. We have done it already. So
sure.
I take your point. The one thing that stops the difference between us and Stockport, Gab, I feel, and we're in the midst of it now, is they can sign better players. They have not to make it about budget, but sometimes when you're a team when you support a team in the bottom 8 in terms of budget, and you're talking about getting into the playoffs like we are, you're talking about clubs with big budgets, and Bolton, Barnsley, Stockport, they'll all be fairly well-sized budgets. And I imagine the difference would be, I mean, Micah Hamilton's come in today from Middlesbrough. I can't imagine. I don't know. I can't imagine the loan fee would have been small. I imagine there would have been a decent loan fee in order to acquire him. So that's the difference between us and Stockport. I think they could, if us and Stockport are in for the same player, Stockport can offer them a better financial package. And we know what footballers are like. They go where the money is, and they're every right to. So that would maybe edge Stockport over me, over us for now, I think.
Cole, would you agree with me that if Leyton Orient keep Richie Wellens, they'd probably be third or fourth in this ranking? But if they lose Richie Wellens, they're probably down to, I don't know, 8th ahead of Mansfield.
Well, I put him in 6th on my list.
Okay, interesting.
I just think that it's maybe the squad depth potentially that could let them down a little bit. And I do think that they've got a bit of a bad run in them as well. They might have peaked a little bit too soon, possibly. And also, like you said already, Richie Wellens is a bit of a pull, and there could be an opportunity where he could leave and jump ship, maybe. And obviously that could derail the season. So I've kind of put them in that 6th position, with the caveat that if Richie Wellens stays, I think that's where they'll finish. Yeah,
I think I agree. I think they've got a great chance of making the playoffs with the form that they're in. I'm still a little bit. I know people have said Darren Pratley's doing really well for Orient and being in great form, but he's 39. I'm slightly worried that they might get overrun in some games with a 39-year-old in midfield. I do like Jordan Brown though. So we'll see, and hopefully Dan Ajay can get back fit for them, because I think that's going to be huge. So yeah, I'd probably go along with that. So if we say Bolton, Stockport, Barnsley, Lincoln, and then Jake, should we go for Leyton Orient?
I don't. If I'm honest, I don't think there's a lot between us and Leyton Orient. I would just say that Orient at the minute are on a good run of form, and we're on a bad run of form, and we're only 3 points behind them. So I think if you're asking me in terms of quality, I do think on paper we have a better squad, and I think we can finish higher than Leyton Orient. It's just the momentum that they've got at the minute has carried them to above us in the table. So I would back us over Leyton Orient to finish in the playoffs. I would.
Yeah, I'm worried that the off-field issues at Reading, unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to chat to them. The guest we had in mind haven't been able to get hold of for logistical reasons, but I've got a feeling that the off-field problems at Reading are going to be a problem. As much as I really admire the work that Noel Hunt has done, I just think it's going to come to a head at some point. So I would probably say if we've got Bolton, Stockport, then Barnsley, then who do we go for next? Lincoln, Leyton Orient. I'd probably have I might even go, Charlton and Rotherham ahead of Reading, and then Mansfield as the last one. Would anyone agree with that? What do you think I've got the right?
I think with Reading, it seems to be too quiet, doesn't it? The off the field stuff, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for them. It's like you say, it's going to come to a head sooner rather than later in it, and there's going to be probably going to be a bit of a kick-off somewhere, and that with them having such a young squad, that's certainly not going to help the situation, is it?
What about you, Jake? Do you think we've got come to the right ordering? Would you make any changes to the ones I listed there?
I don't know. I actually probably think I'd maybe put Mansfield a little bit higher. I think we're maybe being a little bit disrespectful to Mansfield. Look, as much as
who ahead of though, Jake?
Well, in terms of performance levels over the course of the season, Gab, they're probably staking a claim to maybe be third bottom, maybe go above Rotherham and Charlton. I think if you look at how they've played between the start of the season and now, they've had a few off days. Obviously, they had an off day against us. They've had off days, but you look at, and I was going to say this to Russ. Me and Nap has highlighted this run from the start of December. I think it's all the way through until middle of Feb or the end of Feb, where they play a lot of top teams. Like they've played Bolton, I think they've played Huddersfield, they've played I think they've played Wrexham, they've played they played Wickham. I think they played Wickham twice. So they've had a tough run, but they're still picking up points and they're still competing against the better teams. So I didn't have Mansfield bottom. The bottom team I had was Rotherham, and then I was really close between Charlton and Mansfield. That was like neck and neck, but I probably thought, I don't know, I'm talking myself into putting Mansfield high. I'm gonna go Mansfield, Charlton, then Rotherham. That's just that's
Interesting.
what I've seen.
Okay. Slightly different. I'm not sure. I think Mansfield are having a fantastic season. I just don't quite see enough sort of. It sounds like a real cliche, doesn't
They
it?
remind me
But
like Stevenage last year. They remind me a lot of Stevenage last season.
yeah, fair. I don't quite see enough League One pedigree in this Mansfield squad other than somebody like Lee Gregory. That would be just my feeling on it. But they're having a brilliant season, and I think if they can finish mid-table, then that's a great achievement. Well, listen, gents, I know we've had a longer podcast than usual, so thank you so much for sticking it around and giving us your time. So I certainly don't take that for granted. So thanks so much to both of you. Obviously, go and check out the Here for the Lincoln podcast and that Football League podcast as well for Jake Tong's work, and also the Fanzone podcast on Bolton Wanderers for Colin.
Other way, Cole. That's it. Other way.
Oh, I don't know why. It's reflected. The screen reflects that. Whatever. You can see it, can't you? You know what I mean?
Brilliant stuff. You can also get subscribed to EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify. That would really help us out a lot. Thanks to all our guests this evening. Thanks to you for watching at home. This has been the EFL Debate League One podcast. We'll see you again next week.